Let's consider another use case. In this exercise, we will be part of the incident response team, which received a threat intelligence report about spear phishing attack on another organization. That report didn't contain a specific IoT, but should give us some tips to investigate further. That report, and in this case we will look at the Wikipedia just to make sure we understand better what we will be doing, consisted of very valid signature, DKIM signature, which is part of the DMARC framework for email authentication. That signature was presented in that report, but the real domain was masked for some confidentiality reason, perhaps not to disrupt or interfere with law enforcement investigation. And because it was an example, we potentially could be a little bit struggling to move forward smoothly. We need to obtain the real signature. To validate the real signature, we need to obtain a public key for DKIM, and without the domain, we wouldn't be able to do it because we need to query DNS system asking for this domain, for this selector to give us the proper key. We can even validate that looking at this string. What we'll do, we go to DNS-DB Scout, we execute standard search asking to provide us with DKIM key, and that is communicated within the text record. As you can expect, we found nothing asking for DKIM for this specific domain with this selector. Luckily for us, the report itself consisted a public key, exactly what we were looking for. Why is that make us so lucky? Because we can actually query DNSDB via Scout for this specific public key. And with that, we would learn immediately who is using that shared keys, domain or set of domains, which sent that spear phishing email, which passed all the conventional defenses. For that, we need to execute flexible search. We do the regex. We need to watch out for any special symbols which would be mistreated by or treated as if it was special symbols by regular expressions. Make sure that we have no end lines, and we would execute this query. I prepare it offline, the specific string, which is a public key for DKIM. We know that public key communicated through resource data within text record type. And now we can execute and see whether we can reveal any infrastructure which is using that key. As you can see, we found this. We found this public key. We can compare this with the one which came with our report. That is exactly the same. So now we can find domain or domains which are sending emails, signing it with the corresponding private key. It is very easy to do. We click on this arrow and DNSDB Scout executing standard search asking who is using that specific public keys. And we found at least 2 domains which do so. Remember, this is an example which we took from Wikipedia, but the same report could be a real life report about malicious activity of malicious actors who would be using the proper DNS, proper DKIM signatures to ensure that they can circumvent the defenses of email protection. Let's assume for a second that this domain is suspicious to us. And again, this is Wikipedia example, and I am not making any statements about how malicious this domain is. This is for training exercise, but I will show you how further you can investigate. If that domain was malicious, you would be able to go through and understand first who is sending on behalf of this domain. For that, we need to find SPF record. Once again, this is part of the DMARC framework for email authentication. You can see that Yandex.net R as a domain is allowed to send on behalf of this domain. Also, we can find IP of the hosts which are allowed to send, because SPF record communicates to the email servers, either domains or hosts which are allowed to send on its behalf. Either we missed it or not. No, we didn't. That's the IP of the host which is allowed to send emails on behalf of this domain. What else can we do? Assuming that if it was a suspicious domain, we can go further and investigate what are other hosts sitting on this IP, or we can go and check what are other domains being served by this name server. Please check previous use cases to find out how to do that. But with a simple click, Scout will create a query to help you understand what hosts are using this IP. To summarize, what have we done? We found some sort of IOC, indicator of compromise, in this particular case, a public key of DKIM. We found what domains are using that public-private key pair, and we executed a query to find what those domains are.